It is audible. Anamika,
Yes, sir.
so you please start.
Hear me, sir?
Yeah,
Okay.
it's audible. You can start.
Okay. Good morning, all the dignitaries, respected Dinesh sir, President IIC, Engineer Lavneesh Talwar sir, HOD Electrical Department, faculty members, and budding engineers. Department of Electrical Engineer was established in Yogananda College of Engineering and Technology in the year 2013. Department run so many activities so that the students get involved in addition to the academic curriculum. So coming together is a beginning, keeping together is a progress, working together is a success. It was indeed this mantra of working together that has brought us where we are today. Education in today's world is not just teaching and living within the four walls of the classroom. It is about creating awareness, and awareness is not only restricted to the syllabus, it is for general awareness too. Now I would like to request President IIC YCT Engineer Dinesh Gupta to kindly introduce our guest of the webinar. Dinesh sir?
Yes, thank you, Anamika. Am I audible?
Yes, sir, you are audible.
Good morning, everyone. I, Dinesh Gupta, HOD CSC and IT department, and also the president of IIC Cell of YCT, feel honored and privileged to get an opportunity to welcome today's speaker, Engineer Vishal Nair. He is entrepreneur, educator, editor, and presently he is director of Light and Salt Private Limited at Palakkad, Kerala. He is a co-founder of Light and Salt Private Limited, master trainer at Entrepreneurship Department and Innovation Institute, EDII, Tamil Nadu. He is also head operation at Crossway Solutions. He has done his BTech in Electronics and Media Technology, Karunai Deemed University, Coimbatore, Tamil Nadu, in the year 2009, and MTech in Embedded System from Karuna Deemed University in the year 2014. He has also worked as faculty at Karuna Deemed University and established eCell and coordinator 2 courses in entrepreneurship. Now, I would also like to welcome Engineer Lavneesh Talwar, HOD Electrical Department, and I would also like to welcome faculty and students of Electrical Engineering Department of YCT. Vishal sir, now I would tell you one thing that since Typethon 2021 is going to held on digital platform as well as on physical platform from 22nd of June to 24th of June 2021, and our YCT is one of the nodal centers of India and only the nodal center of J&K, Union Territory of J&K. And we have one Typethon team, and thank you. And we have one Typethon team headed by Vinayak. He is present in this meeting. Congratulations, Vinayak. Congratulations, many congratulations.
Thank you so much, sir.
We have
sir, I think you got muted.
okay. Thanks, Vishal sir. I am telling that we have one team, Typethon 1 team, that is selected under digital category in J&K, and the head of that team is Mr. Binayak, and he's very well present in this meeting. I would like to congratulate Vishal and his members for their achievement. Now, I would hand over the mic to Anamika.
Thank you, Dinesh sir. Very well said. Now I request our guest to please continue the lecture, sir.
Thank you so much, Anamika. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you for the introduction. I feel, in fact, greatly privileged, okay, to be part of this session. Because I think this is the first time that I'm talking to students from Jammu, okay, being from the other end of the country, okay, Kerala. I feel privileged that we're able to connect to the other end of the country without any effort today. So I count it as a privilege, and I have gone through a lot of training in my life, and especially based on entrepreneurship. And I had a trainer called Mr. Raj Bhatt, who is training with Vadhwani Global University today. And he's one of the best trainers I have come across in my life on entrepreneurship. So in one of the training programs, I happened to ask him, Raj sir, till now you have trained so many faculty, students, corporate professionals and all, and you are such a well-known trainer. Tell me, where did you find the best students when you trained? And without any hesitation, immediately he said, Vishal, I found it in a place where I least expected to find. So I said, where was it? And he said it was in Jammu. Okay, it was in Jammu, Kashmir. I don't remember which school, which college did he talk about. But he said that was a place where he found the best students, where actually he expected the least. And he gave such a high regard, and he had such a great respect for students from Jammu. You know, I think all of you deserve a pat on your back, because that came from the horse's mouth, one person who's one of the best trainers. So I'm expecting the same crowd here, the same enthusiasm in the participants. Okay, and let me tell you, this session will be very interesting if you're interactive with me. Okay, so thank you so much for having me. I believe all of you are able to hear me clearly and able to see my presentation. Anamika,
Yes.
can you?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah,
It is
sure.
visible to us. Okay.
Sure. Okay. So just a minute. Yeah. Yes. So today's topic was very interesting. Okay. In fact, the 3 topics that sir had given to me was interesting, and I was very happy that I got this topic to discuss upon: building an innovative product fit for the market. Okay, because this is something that I teach at the core. Not only in the I was not only teaching it in the university where I was working for 10 years as an assistant professor in the Department of Electronics and Communication Engineering, but also I used to train a lot of students who pursued entrepreneurship, especially from technical institutions, right? So this was so I'm going to share more of my conviction, my experience, rather than any bookish knowledge. Okay, so I believe this should excite you. Okay, so building an innovative product fit for the market. Okay, so that's the topic, right? So going ahead, okay, if we look at the businesses that are in the world today, okay, we can categorize them into 2 types. If we look at all the entrepreneurial ventures that are in the world today, we can easily categorize them into 2 parts. You know, one part is maybe the MSME, the medium, micro, small and medium scale enterprises, okay, which any one of us see locally, right? Even beside you, a mom and pop store, or maybe a fabrication store, or anyone who gives a skill or trade, anyone who does a business with the skill or trade they have. Okay, so some people are self-employed. Okay, there some people sell their skills, some people trade with things that are not available in their place, looking at a need, a challenge that they see in their place. So you see a lot of MSMEs around you, and this is one type of business that many of them adopt, and most of them, I would say close to 99% of the businessmen adopt the MSME culture. But then in this generation, and the need of this time is actually innovation driven enterprises, right? IDE, or we call them as IDE. And innovation driven enterprises is something that you as engineers can actually take a leap in doing it. You as an engineers can actually start doing much more effectively, because you know tools, you are exposed to technologies, you can collaborate with your colleagues in your college or in other colleges or universities in India as well as abroad, and come up with an innovation driven enterprise which can actually change the world, right? Of course, it doesn't require you to have a technology background for sure. No, there are many people who have established technology industries in this world who are not from technology background at all, who did not have much understanding of the technology background also, right? So it is all about an entrepreneurial mindset. Okay, but I would highly encourage you as students, especially because you are from engineering background, to take up something that is innovation driven, right? Innovation driven. And as rightly is a topic today, innovation product fit, right? Innovative product fit. So what is innovation? If I should ask you, can someone say what is innovation in your own words? You know, if you're too shy in talking, you can also type in the chat box. What is innovation in your own words? What do you consider as an innovation? Yes. Yes. What is your thought about what innovation is? Yes. Anybody? So is innovation something that is invention? Can it be equated to just invention? Can innovation be just equated to simply invention? So is it invention and innovation? They are just two different words. Or they mean the same thing? Is it same? No, I don't think so. Okay. Innovation and invention are mostly used, either or in most of our conversation, but they are not the same. Okay. They are not the same. Innovation is a step ahead of invention. Invention may be a new thing or maybe a value added for an existing thing. Okay. That you may call as an invention. But let me tell you, invention by itself has no value. Invention by itself has no value until and unless you commercialize it. Okay, so an innovation we can call something that is an invention that is commercialized. You have an idea, you have a product. Okay, you are doing a project in your engineering. You are solving a problem. Unless and otherwise that solution, that product, that service, or that project goes to the market and gets sold, that till then it is not commercialized. Okay, so there are a lot of good inventions lying around in your own college. At least 10 to 15 projects may be happening every single year, because there will be a number of students will be graduating as engineers and they have to do projects. There will be so many projects that are happening. How many projects do you feel get commercialized? How many projects have you seen getting commercialized? Some of those projects get converted into a paper. Very good. Some of those projects get converted into a patent. But how many of those paper or patents get commercialized? Now, this is a place where invention becomes an innovation. When you add commercialization factor with that invention, that is where innovation takes place. And we want innovation to happen. As rightly is a topic for us today, we want innovation to happen in our country. There is a lot of invention happening. In fact, you may also agree at your institution, there's a lot of invention happening at your university. But how much of innovation is happening, right? So we need to bring this culture where we innovate, right? Where we innovate, yeah? So going ahead, there are three people in this image that you can see, right? And can you identify any one of these people? Yes? You can unmute your mic and talk, or you can even type it in the chat box.
Yes, sir. The
Last one is Stephen Hawking.
Last one is?
Stephen Hawking.
Stephen Hawking. The person in the center is Stephen Hawking?
Stephen Hawking.
Exactly. I believe most of you would have recognized him, right? Okay. What about the person to the left and the right? Can someone recognize the person to the left and the person to the right? I would so highly appreciate if you're able to recognize them.
So I think they are the same. Just change their beard cuts.
Oh, they are same person? Or no, they're not same person. In fact, they are Indians.
Indians.
Yes. They may not appear to be so, but yes, they are Indians. So what do you think? Any guesses? Okay, so let me break the ice due to want of time. So the person in the center, as rightly pointed out by you, is Stephen Hawking. Okay, but the person to the left and the right is the person to the left is known as Vikram Krishna, and person to the right is known as Arun Mehta. Now, I'm not surprised that many of us don't know about them because our media never covered them. Our country never celebrated them, though their contribution was great. And neither they themselves took ahead what they did in their life. So let me tell you a brief background. All of us know Stephen Hawking today in the world, one of the foremost scientists that we all regard very highly. Okay, a scientist whose discoveries and theories are still not talked about, though he passed away some couple of years back. But his contribution to the scientific community is so highly talked about. His books, his publications, his patents is so highly talked about even today. One of the best scientific minds our world has ever seen. But one reason that he was bound to a wheelchair, which again many of us may know, was because of a motor neuron disease he had, right? So he had a disease which inhibited his muscles to coordinate with his brain to coordinate with his muscles in the body. So it was a degenerative disease. The disease was first discovered when he was doing his PhD, his higher education. And once this discovery was discovered, it slowly paralyzed him in his body. right? It wasn't instantly, but slowly he was losing the use of his different faculties in his body. So that is how he became a wheelchair bound. But nevertheless, he had a brilliant mind. He continued his research work, and he continued in spite of all the challenges and limitations he had, with some support and aid, he was able to contribute to the scientific community. And he was actually, when he was visiting India back in the year 90s, he had almost become wheelchair bound. He was wheelchair bound, and he had great difficulty even in conversing with the people. When he had visited India, he was actually welcomed with a rock star kind of welcome. A lot of technocrats and scientists went and visited him personally, right? And one of the technocrats and scientists who went and visited were Vikram Krishna and Arun Mehta also. When they found that here is a brilliant person, but with this inability to talk. His voice had got slurred by that time, because even to move the muscles in his mouth were becoming difficult for him. So that is the time Vikram Krishna Arun Mehta saw that so many people had such amazing questions which they asked, and he answered them so wonderfully, but he answered it so slowly and in a slurred voice. That is the time Mr. Vikram Krishna Arun Mehta thought about helping Mr. Stephen Hawking. And the way they wanted to help Stephen Hawking was to create some device by which he can talk effortlessly to the people. Now, that is when Vikram Krishna and Arun Mehta started conversing with Stephen Hawking. And within the next 6 months or a year, they came up with a system which is called as eLocutor. They came up with a system which is called as eLocutor. Now, eLocutor is a software which actually interpreted a gesture on a single finger, which Stephen Hawking could move that time, and convert those gestures to words, and these words would be converted into speech, right? So this was a very out of the world invention for the times of 80s, when computer science, robotics, and all were just developing. But they developed this and they gave it to Stephen Hawking, and Stephen Hawking was so enthralled that somebody from India solved this problem. Nevertheless, Stephen Hawking went ahead, used that solution, started communicating more effortlessly to the world. His work started being noticed more effortlessly, and he should thank Arun Mehta and Vikram Krishna for that, right? The same system was later on developed and made into something big by Intel and IBM and all those people. But nevertheless, the idea came from these two Indian scientists. The first prototype came from these two Indian scientists, and nobody recognized them, right? Yeah. I wouldn't blame Stephen Hawking for not giving them credit. I would say there is a blame that Vikram Krishna Arun Mehta also has to take. We'll come to it. Let me ask you another question. Okay, let me introduce 3 more individuals to you. So can you identify any one of these individuals? Yes? Can someone identify any one of these 3 individuals? Very simple, right? Yes? Okay, so let me tell you the individuals that you see, especially to the left and the right. Can someone identify them? You can even guess.
No, sir.
Okay, so let me give you a clue. They are the founders of the largest search engine in the world. Yes? Now,
Google.
exactly, Google. So Google founders, can anyone point out? Now, are you able to find out who are the Google founders in this? So can somebody point out who are the Google founders in this? The person to the left, the person to the right, or the person to the center? Yes? Who are the Google founders in this? 2 individuals in this picture are Google founders. Who are they? The person to the left, the center, or the right?
So center one is there and
Center one
Sir,
is
left and right.
left and right. Okay,
Left.
so most of you would recognize Google as an American company, but by looking at the face itself, maybe some of you would have been able to guess that the person to the left and the right most probably are the Google founders. Okay, so maybe rightly guessed by most of you, the person to the left and the right, Larry Page and Sergey Brin. I believe for sure, people from computer science background, electrical background will definitely know their name. Larry Page and Sergey Brin are people behind Google, are the co-founders of Google, right? And one of the greatest technology startups the world has ever seen, right? But how many of you could recognize the person in the center? Dr. Rajiv Motwani. How many of you have heard his name?
Sir, I think he's a computer science researcher.
Exactly, he's a computer scientist. So at least there is somebody who's recognizing him. I'm very happy. Actually, Dr. Rajiv Motwani was a scientist or was a professor who guided Larry Page and Sergey Brin. So if you look back into the past, back in 1993, 1994, when Larry Page and Sergey Brin were doing their PhD under Dr. Rajiv Motwani's guidance, okay, it was an Indian professor who was guiding them. That is the time they were solving a problem on page ranking algorithm. In fact, they were writing an algorithm on page ranking, right? That was a need for that time, especially with the search engines being found out, internet booming and everything, right? And, Dr. Rajiv Motwani was very enthralled with this algorithm they had wrote. They went on to publish this paper on page ranking algorithm also. But after that, Dr. Rajiv Motwani completely disappears from the image, right? I believe Dr. Rajiv Motwani is very happy that this paper got published. He got very good high impact factor. Maybe he got SI index or whatever it is, okay? And after that, we don't see him much in the picture. But nevertheless, Larry Page and Sergey Brin understand that the paper that they had published or the research that they had done or the algorithm that they had found on page ranking can greatly revolutionize the way the search engines can operate. And that is where the idea of Google was found in their mind. Till that time, only Yahoo was a search engine in place and almost had more than 90% market share then. And Google wanted to establish something like Yahoo, but with a different algorithm. And they knew this would work. And that's how Google was formed. And I believe the rest is history and all of you know it, right? Today, Larry Page and Sergey Brin are billionaires. People call them legendary technocrats in this world. They have created the best technology startup ever seen in the world, right? None of us can live without the technology startup that they have introduced. Can any one of us imagine living for a single day without a Google search engine or a Gmail or application that Google gives, right? Even our phones won't operate as we have. Our phones wouldn't have been as cheap as it is without a Google Android OS, right? So all these things are possible because these two people started a company called Google, right? And now these two people would be remembered, are remembered and would be remembered. Does anyone remember Dr. Rajiv Motwani? Yeah. So I want to point out something very critical here, okay, which I believe can transform your life or transform your perspective with respect to entrepreneurship and startup, right? So these three individuals over here, whether it was Vikram Krishna, Arun Mehta, or Dr. Rajiv Motwani, brilliant Indians, brilliant minds. Okay, they had the best education. They were scientists, technocrats. Their innovation was out of the world for their time. Their thinking, their thought process was out of the world, but they never got the limelight. They were never known, recognized. Their inventions never saw the limelight, but these three individuals actually should be thankful to the other three Indians that I showed you, got all the limelight. They became very popular. They're known today as legends, okay? But not these three individuals. What went wrong? It's simple. These three individuals knew that whatever their invention was should be commercialized, and they did that. But these three individuals were very happy with their invention, okay? They never thought about converting their invention into an innovation, right? Whereas these three individuals knew that if they do not convert their invention into an innovation, they'd be lost in the timeline of the history. And that is all the difference here. So let me tell you, until and unless you convert your invention into an innovation with commercialization, you will not be remembered, or you will be remembered for very less. Do you want to be remembered like Stephen Hawking or Sergey Brin or Larry Page? And do you want to contribute to the entire world with your innovation-driven enterprise? Let me tell you, innovate. Just don't invent. Because if you invent, you'll have their fate. Okay. Let me ask you, why did Arun Mehta and Vikram Krishna go ahead with that same technology that they developed for Stephen Hawking and provide it to the world? In fact, they were very happy solving a problem for a foremost scientist. But let me ask you, did only Stephen Hawking had that problem? Why didn't they take that same solution and commercialize it and sell it to the whole world? Thousands of people in this world would have had the same challenge that time, right? They would have become overnight success stories in this world. And especially India could have been proud of the startup or business that they would have established. Why didn't Dr. Rajiv Motwani think about Google? He in fact, it was his brainchild. Page ranking algorithm first birthed in his mind, given that he was guiding two students who actually made this startup possible. Why didn't he think about Google? Maybe it would have been innovated, or this innovation would have come out of US itself, but at least we could have been proud that an Indian scientist launched Google, right? But it never happened. But these three individuals did that. Why? And this makes a very big difference in our society, right? Today, India is a country with a lot of invention, a lot of patents, a lot of publications. We don't have more products. We don't have products that meet the market and get tested in the market, stay in the market, compete in the market, and is given to the world. We have innovation happening, but only in pockets, only in few metropolitan cities. But let me tell you, it can happen anywhere. The only difference the innovation need to happen is your mindset. Your mindset is the key. You need to shift your mindset from an invention mindset to an innovation mindset. Any invention, small or big, when you find out, let me tell you, ask yourself a question. How would I commercialize it? How will I sell it? How will I sell it either to my immediate neighborhood or to the country or to the world? Okay, that thought should continuously trouble you, because if that thought does not trouble you, your invention is going to bite the dust in your same university, in your same state, on your same locality. It will never be known to the world, right? You will have a momentary appreciation. It's good to win in a challenge or competition. Okay, that may be conducted by Innovation Council in your college, or that may be conducted by Startup India program. But what about later on? What about your impact to the world, right? That is a greater calling. So I would request you all to look at the brighter and a bigger picture. Okay. Yes. So going ahead, let's go ahead with our discussion. Can you point out something that is common among these three products, right? So before we talk about the products that have a market fit, let us talk about products, some of the familiar products that you can see on the slide. Can you find something that is common among these three products? Yes.
Philips.
Yes, Philips, and then Google Glass and Tata Nano. Can you point out something that is common among these three products?
Sir, these are all commercialized.
Okay, these are all commercialized. Exactly. Yeah, sure. Okay. Anything that is common? Other thing that is common? Three great companies, right? Philips, Google, Tata, great giants in the world. What is that one thing common among these three? What is that one thing that binds all the three together? Yes. Okay, so let me break the ice here. It is all of them were failure. Okay, so whether it is the first, second, or third product, they were all failure. Surprising, products. I believe most of you would be familiar with Tata Nano as a failure, but I don't know if you are familiar with the other two products. I think some of you may be familiar with Google Glasses also being a failure. How many of you know Philips came up with this atta maker or dough maker, which was also a failure back in those days? Okay, so let me give you an example. So Philips actually came up with this wonderful idea of making, dough. Now, Philips understood the key to entrepreneurship or launching a product is by studying the problem in a particular geography or location. And that's how Philips come up with products or solutions. And Philips does not have a reputation of failure, right? Philips is successful in almost all the product launches. And we also have a great brand value about Philips in our mind, right? So Philips came up with this product back in 90s, early 90s, late 80s or 90s itself, which was actually a dough maker. We all eat chapatis, and we know how much effort our mom put in making chapatis, right? Like they have to take the dough, they have to mix it with water, and they have to put their energy into it, and then they come up with chapatis or rotis or whatever you call them. Now, Philips thought that this is a very strenuous work that Indian housewives do. Why not we replace it with a machine, right? And that is where they came up with a machine. That is where they came up with a machine, as you can see in the pic, something similar to it. I could not get the first machine that they made, but something similar to it. And this is a machine they thought would replace the strenuous work every housewife would do. So they did research and development, and within 6 months of time, they came up with this machine. Dr. Pradeep Subramaniam, who was the research and development head then, shared that when they launched this product, they did not have even a 1% doubt in their mind that this machine would become unsuccessful. Okay, they had 100% surety that this machine becomes successful. So they did big advertisement campaigns. They posted this banners. They put television ad, everything. Okay, and they were waiting for a great success. And they had launched this machine as a pilot project in 2 states where more chapatis are eaten in India, it seems. Okay, and it was Maharashtra and Gujarat, right? So when they launched this machine, to everybody's surprise and to the utter surprise of Philips, this machine was not getting sold a lot, right? This machine was not getting sold a lot. Very few pieces were sold. Now, Philips had thought of millions of sales happening within a couple of days, but it did not happen. It was actually biting the dust in whoever retailers had taken this machine, they were not able to sell it out of their shelves. People were just not expecting, in spite of a great advertisement campaign, banners, ads, and everything, but it's not selling. Let me ask you, the audience, what would have been the reason? Why did people reject this product? Especially in a place, in a state where a lot of people eat chapati. What do you think? Yes? What is your thought on it? What do you think?
Sir,
The
maybe
same-
the cost
Cost of product.
Cost of the
Cost.
product. Okay. What about others? Any other reason? India is a very price sensitive market, right? So maybe the cost of the product. Yes. Same thought process went in the Philips R&D wing, right? They started thinking, what went wrong? Did we price it very high? Okay. Was the machine very complex to use? Are the people afraid that this machine will cost them a higher electricity bill, right? Or they said somehow. So these were some of the things that were happening, and Philips actually had dealt with these questions even before making this machine, right? They had made sure that it does not consume more electricity, that they made sure that it will be priced under premium range, so that initially it will gain a great traction, even at a lower profit range, right? So they had all worked out this question, and they were not satisfied that these were the reasons. That is when Philips advisors, right, the Philips team sent people to go to the market, meet these housewives or people at home, who make these chapatis, and talk to them and understand from their perspective, why are they not buying this amazing product, right? And so they started doing it. And the revelation that came out of these people from these housewives is something that actually stunned Philip. Okay, so what happened was they started going and talking to housewives, and they started asking them, why are you not using a machine, something like this, which can actually help you not get your hand messed? You can, it wastes so much of your energy, your time, maybe the same time that you spend in this, maybe you can go watch TV while the machine does your job. All these things they started saying, okay, and why are you not buying it? Is it because of high price? We are ready to reduce the price. Why not you just try it for some time? But housewives are just like, no, we just don't want it. And most of the housewives were not opening up also. Why didn't they want it? Until finally some housewives started opening up, and which literally blew the mind of Philips. Okay, and what they said was simple. They said, this is a hard work for housewives in Gujarat, but this is also work that the housewives enjoy, it seems. Can you imagine a housewife enjoying making chapati dough? Okay, but this was something that was revealed. And they said, why do you enjoy? They said it's a pleasure activity for us. It's a stress relieving activity, some housewives say. So how is it a stress relieving activity? So some housewives openly told, when they actually make that chapati dough, they put in so much of pressure, so much of strength, and that is when they actually put all their anger into it. Okay, they relieve all the stress into it. They scold their disobedient son who's gone to college, or they curse their unloving daughter-in-law, or whatever it is. They start putting all this stress in, and this is kind of a stress relieving exercise for them. Okay, and this is what many housewives said, and this is true. Okay, and when this was said, Philips totally got surprised. They said, how can we understand such intricate needs of a housewife? Will anyone replace their pleasure activity with a product? Not possible, even if it solves a problem for them. Now, this is the Philips understood. The research to do product market fit goes far beyond a survey sheet, goes far beyond a basic market research. And that is where they understood that they need to empathize. What is empathy? Can someone point out what is empathy? They need to empathize with their market before they launch any product. Okay, and this is one thing very key. Empathy is simple. It is not sympathy. Sympathy is just to feel, sad about or feel pity about somebody's condition. But empathy is feeling the world from their point of view, feeling the pain from their point of view, or understanding their worldview. Okay, so let me tell you one key element that we can learn from Philips product is that they fail to empathize or understand the need of the market from the market's point of view, right? And that is very key to find a product market fit, right? You may be an amazing company, you may come up with an amazing product, but if you cannot empathize with your customer, you'll fail. Okay, so a company like Philips can fail, and it's possible. Okay, so let's take another example. Google also failed with its Google Glasses. Why? It was a marvelous technology, it was a great technology, but launched at time when people didn't want it, right? And it was priced a premium for that for the moment of time. Okay, no, that is what is called as, you know, when companies fail to empathize. When companies fail to, a company like Google can fail to empathize. You know, when it was launched, people were thinking this is the next big thing, want to replace smartphones, this, that, and everything. But did that happen? People already find a smartphone as a distraction in their hand. Will they put it in front of their eyes? They will not do it. They will not do it, right? So that is where a company like Google also failed to empathize with its customer, and they lost a great product like Google Glass. It became a failure and it was a shock to Google, right? When it comes to Nano, most of us may know the story, right? A great product with a great thought to start something like a nano car, right? I believe you know the thought that went behind Tata Motors. You know, Tata Motors released this under the influence of Ratan Tata, who wanted to develop the cheapest car in this world, okay, for the middle class families who could only afford a bike, But that was the reason that Tata Nano car was launched. Okay, and once Tata Nano car was launched, people thought that Tata Nano car will be the next best-selling car in the world. Okay, but it didn't happen. You know, can I ask you one question? Why didn't Tata Nano car sell well? What is the reason?
Build quality, sir.
Build quality. Okay. Any other reason? Can someone point out?
Sir, looks.
Looks, right? So some of you say it looks like a sir anda jaisa dikhta hai, right?
Yes.
Looks like a soap box, right? So maybe looks okay.
Sir,
But
comfort,
power was
durability,
also low.
comfort,
Yes.
durability.
Power was low, comfort was low, durability was low. Okay. Yes. So as you pointed out, the Tata company actually did a lot of brainstorming on the same issue. What did make this Tata Nano car not to sell? Because they were targeting people who could afford a bike and they just wanted a roof over their head. Okay. The story goes like this. Ratan Tata, when he was traveling back from his office one day, and it was pouring. It was raining heavily. And because it was raining heavily, and when it was raining heavily, he actually stopped with his car at a signal where he found another couple traveling on a bike with their 2 children. Okay. And Ratan Tata saw this couples outside the car and he was surprised. He said, it is pouring so heavily. It is raining so heavily. Why are these couples traveling with their 2 children on a bike on this flooded road? There are potholes on this road. What if they flip and fall and come under a bus or a truck? It's so risky. So he actually conveyed this anxiety to his driver, and his driver said, sir, this is very normal for a middle class family, they'll go through it. But he said, he just asked out of curiosity, what is the cost of that bike over there? And his driver said, sir, that bike may be around 80 to 90,000 rupees. So he asked his driver this question: what if I give them a car for 1 lakh rupees, a car that will put a roof over their head? Okay, a car in which 4 people can travel comfortably in a family. Okay, a car which will be good, high on mileage, which they can have. Well, will they buy the car? The driver was very emphatic in telling this. Yes, definitely they will buy. Definitely they will buy. Why not? So that was the motivation Tata had, and this is what the motivation he released. So after the failure of Tata Nano car, a lot of brainstorming session happened. To find why Tata Nano car, because the build quality was uncompromised. Trust me, I have a friend who has 2 Nano car. I personally have driven Nano car for such a long time, for many times. I found this car to be pretty good, durable, right? Later on versions also worked on its sound that could be sieved in and all those things. It was pretty good economical car, you know, a car which you can drive in a busy city like Chennai or Bangalore, like a bike, park it anywhere, right? Without fear. So it was an amazing car. And quality-wise, Ratan Tata had not compromised. He said, don't compromise on the quality, even if we run in loss for the starting segment. So, but nevertheless, this car was a failure. And when the market pundits did a research, to their amazement, they found out a very peculiar reason. And the reason was branding. How many of you could understand that branding can go wrong, right? Let me ask you, in the Indian society, why do people buy car? Do they buy a car for their needs? Do they buy the car for the utility? Why do they buy a car? Yes. Why do you think in Indian society, most of the people buy a car?
So it's a mark of status to show other people.
Exactly, right? It's a mark of status. Now imagine the branding statement of Nano car. Does anyone remember it? When Nano car was launched, what was the branding statement of Nano car? Poor man's car. Okay. The Tata Nano was branded as the poor man's car. Now imagine the Indian society, which considers car as a status symbol. If they own a car and people call them, it's a poor man's car, would you like it? Right? Now this is a problem that Ratan Tata could not have imagined. Right? He did not imagine. And let me tell you, market pundits have rightly pointed out that it was a branding statement which inhibited people from buying this car. Can you think about it? Now, how do you find a product? See, engineering is perfect. Technology is perfect. Design is perfect. Okay. You sit inside a Tata Nano car, it's better legroom than even a Maruti Alto, right? Engineering, many of the engineering design inputs and all was taken from Germany, right? Uncompromised technology, everything is perfect, but branding went wrong. You see, a product can be a misfit in the market even if the branding goes wrong. Even if the time of the launch goes wrong, right? Now, how do you understand these needs? You know what? I believe Ratan Tata went wrong when he asked the opinion of his driver and not the person who was on the bike outside. If he had to empathize with his customer, I believe he should have gone, should have got off his car and asked that person on the bike that, sir or madam, you know, what do you expect in a car? Or why should you have a car? Maybe then he could have had a clear understanding and the branding could have been right, right? So let me tell you, finding a product market fit is trivial procedure, and great companies like Tata, Philips, or even Google can fail. Great companies in the past like Kodak, Nokia have failed, right? So it is actually a trivial thing, but one thing that sets it all apart, or one step that can actually make you successful in finding the market fit, is when you start empathizing with your customer, right? And I want to introduce to you one tool, which is called as a design thinking tool. And being a part of IIC and being an engineering institution, definitely would have come across this tool once, or you would come across cell or ecosystem in the university. But let me tell you, design thinking tool was a tool that was developed in Stanford University. It was a tool that it is a tool that any entrepreneurs, in fact, any individuals, engineers, technocrats, teachers, anyone can use to solve the problem and to validate if the solution is a market fit. Are you able to understand? Design thinking is a tool which you can use to solve the problem and to validate if the product or the solution or the service that comes out of this solution is a market fit. That is what is a design thinking tool. So it starts with the step. The first step in this design thinking process itself is called as empathize, right? Empathize. Empathize means understanding your customer from his perspective, right? So let me tell you, the next time when you do a product, the next time when you do a project, the next time you find out a service, don't find a service or a product based upon your expectation. Find a product or service based on the expectation of your probable customers. And how do you do it? By empathizing with them. Before Philips should have made an atta maker, they should have gone to housewives and discussed with them. That was empathizing. Before Google Glasses would have released the product, they shouldn't have trusted their technology prowess and said, whatever we launch, we'll sell. No, they should have gone to the market and understood from the market, are they ready for a product like this? Before Tata should have launched Nano car, even with the right intention, should have gone and discussed with the poor people in our country or middle class people in our country, what are the expectations from the car? This is what is called as empathizing. This is what is called as empathizing, right? As a student, you can empathize with your, okay, let me tell you, when you start empathizing itself, a lot of projects, problems, or products or services suddenly become visible to you, right? That is the power of empathy. And that's the first step in design thinking process. It's an iterative process. Okay. So once you empathize, then you'll be able to define what is required in that product. What is required in that product which can make it into a market fit. You'll be able to narrow down your approach. And after that, you'll be able to ideate. Ideate is a place where you brainstorm, you mind map, you come up with different techniques to find a solution to an existing problem. And then you come up with a prototype, right? I believe as engineers, all of you know what is a prototype. It can be a minimum viable product, or it can be a solution demo. Now, when you come up with a prototype, your prototype needs to be tested. You can test it with your probable customers, not with one or two set, with hundreds of people. And when you test it, your test result will tell you, do you need to tweak your product? Maybe you went wrong somewhere at ideation stage, you come back to ideation stage, then again make the prototype correct, then again come and test it. Maybe you feel you empathize itself wrong, you come back to empathize stage, define it again, ideate, prototype, test. So this is an iterative, a cyclic process. Okay. So I would highly encourage you, if you want to find the right product market fit, of adopt design thinking. So I'm not going to go much deeper into design thinking today because that's not the topic. Let's step into a few examples of entrepreneurs who started small but have found the right product market fit by understanding the problem from the perspective of the people who are having the problem. Okay, so let me take one example over here. Let me take one example, a classroom example. Okay, so this is a true story that happened, true incidents that happened in Mumbai, one of the universities in Mumbai, and a professor shared his example here. And maybe your college also can actually start this practice, right? So the professor has a practice of encouraging students to entrepreneurship there. And he actually encourages them to use this tool called design thinking. So when he introduces this tool, he gives them 2-week exercise. Okay, he gives a 2-week exercise where he says to his students to find a target audience. The target audience is actually given by the professor itself. And he says, go and empathize with its target audience and find a way you can, a solution or a product that you can come up for them. Right. So what the professor will do, he'll divide the class of 50 members or so into 5 in each group. And to each group, he will give a target on. So maybe one group, he'll say, go, your target audience are students from standard 1 to 5. So another group, he'll say your target audience are people working in IT industry. The other group of one other group, he will say. So one group, he gave a target audience as deaf and mute housewives. Okay. So this is a very peculiar or a niche target audience that he gave to one group of students. So he said, go and empathize with a deaf and mute housewife. Okay. So let me ask you, in your, among all the students who are attending today, does anyone know a deaf and mute housewife? Pretty tough, right? To find out, right? It's a little difficult to find out a person who's deaf and mute and a housewife, right? So these students actually found it difficult, but nevertheless, by finding all the contacts they had, their parents had, their relatives had, their friends had, they found out a housewife who was deaf and mute. Okay. So when they found out that housewife was deaf and mute, they started going, they went immediately to her and they started asking her questions through her husband. Okay. Of course, her husband would have communicated to her through sign language. And start asking her, what problems do you face on daily basis? Okay. So when this question was asked to that deaf and mute, she was smiling and she said, I don't have any problem. What is your problem? So she did not reveal any single problem or issue or challenge she had. And these students got dejected, came back to the professor telling, sir, we asked her questions, but we did not get any answer. She said she has no problem. The professor said, did you empathize? They said, yes, we empathize. We asked questions. The professor said, empathy is not about asking questions. Empathy is about living with the person, knowing the person's perspective from their point of view. And sometimes it can reveal areas which they themselves have not discovered. So that is where the professor encourages the students to, why not take permission of the husband and live with that housewife from 9 to 5 when the husband goes to work and the housewife is all alone at home, right? So they got the permission from the husband, and these two girls or these two students went and literally lived with the housewife when her husband was not at home from 9 to 5 when he goes for work. And this is the time they found out that she started working in the kitchen, she started cooking, she started washing her clothes, and they found some amazing, they observed some certain things which amazed them. One thing was, whenever this lady put a cooker on a pressure cooker on the gas, she never flinched from that place. She constantly was staring at the cooker and she was not leaving that place at all. Does the same thing happen in your home? Yeah. Does your mom put the cooker and constantly keep staring at the cooker? Doesn't happen, right? She moves around and does the other work when the things in the cooker are cooking, right? And she decides if the things are cooked by hearing the sound of the whistle. But did not happen with it because she could not hear it. She was watching to see if the cooker's whistle is lifted. This is one problem they identified on the very first day. They also identified that this woman often, every 10 minutes, checked the entrance of the house if anybody has come, right? Because she could not hear the bell sound, right? And they found that she had kept something in microwave oven, which had actually finished and was beeping, but she could not hear. Now, these were something that actually they observed and they were amazed. Actually, there are so many problems that this woman itself does not know that they are actually problems for her. And if we solve it, it can actually make her life easier. Okay. So that is where, to cut the story short, they came up with this amazing product, which was a very simple solution. It was a wearable device, which was integrated through Bluetooth with the help of some sensors with the appliances in a home, like cooker, washing machine, or microwave oven, or a doorbell, and all those things. So this device actually vibrated with a color code. So if a pressure cooker went up, whistle in the pressure cooker went up, maybe the red light would glow and it would vibrate. Okay. So the second time when it went up, the red light would again glow and it would vibrate. So this woman would come to know that the pressure cooker is, the whistle is being on the pressure cooker. So, or the microwave oven has finished, or somebody is at the doorbell. If somebody brings a doorbell, a green light will go on and the device, the wristband will actually vibrate. So this is something that she actually was able to, they were able to make a product. Okay. So nevertheless, this product actually, they could find out that this product actually helped them. Okay. But let me tell you what is the key element there. They never took it to the market because there were other reasons, but telling you the reason that this product was impossible until and otherwise they empathized with that lady. Okay. They empathized, they lived with that lady who was, that woman who was deaf and mute. Okay. And understood her worldview from her point of view. Okay. From her point of view. So that is the key element to find a product or to find a service that you want to give it to others. Okay. So can you look at their worldview from their point of view? Okay. Yeah. So that requires empathy. That requires empathy, right? So how many of you know this individual over here? Can anyone guess him? Yes. Can anyone guess his name? How many of you know this individual? Yes. Can anyone guess?
Yes, sir. He's the main character. He was the person. Akshay Kumar did a movie, sir. I'm not able to remember.
Exactly.
Sir, the
Is this the
Padman of
movie?
India.
Exactly. Very good. So you remember Akshay Kumar, right? But you don't remember his name. Fine. So this is.
I do remember his name, but I'm not able to recall it.
Recall it. Okay.
Instantly.
That's fine. That's fine. So again, our media does not project him more, right? Our media is happy to project the interview that Akshay Kumar does with our Prime Minister and all those things. But how many of us do project this man, who inspired Akshay Kumar to play a role in the movie called Padman? Well, his name is Mr. Arunachal Muruganathan. Okay. And he hails from the city where I spent the last 10 years of my life, right? And he is a 10th fail. Okay, some of you would have seen the movie, would have known the story of it, would know the story of it. Now, let me tell you briefly his story. He was a 10th fail, and he was working as a mechanic helper in a mechanical workshop. Okay, a workshop in Coimbatore. Coimbatore is a city with more than 50,000 small-scale industries. So he was working in one small-scale industry like that as a helper. He was not educated person. He knew just few skills that he had learned in that workshop. Now, being in Coimbatore, one thing you would notice that you would by default get some expertise in textile because it is also Manchester of South India. So he had some idea in that, and he was working in a textile shop. Now he was working as a mechanic help. Now, one day his wife was hiding something behind her and speedily going outside the home to dump it somewhere. So that's the time he went and he got little, curious about it. And he went and asked, as a good husband, what are you hiding from me? What is that? She immediately said, like slapping on his face, like, it is none of your business, right? Go mind your own. So he said, no, I want to know, what are you doing? So he found out that she was actually dumping her sanitary napkins, which is not actually sanitary napkin. It was actually a cloth, a very bad cloth, a nasty cloth that she had used to go through her period days. And he said, why are you doing it? Why don't you use sanitary napkins, right? So she said, if we have to afford sanitary napkins, if we buy sanitary napkins, we'll be compromising with the milk budget in our home. So you can understand they were very poor, downtrodden family. But that is the time Mr. Arunachalam Muruganathan understood that as a lower middle class or poor people in this country, they can never get access to hygienic practice of dealing with their period days. So that is something that actually hit him very hard. And he went on to do research on finding out what is the elements that are used in sanitary pads or napkins. And he found out, he went to a medical store, bought a sanitary napkin packet, and he found out the weight of that sanitary napkin was just 10 grams or so. Okay. But it was sold for 400 times more the cost of that much of material in cotton that you would require, right? So he understood that it costs so much more. Why do they cost it so much more and put it beyond the bounds or reach of a poor household like him? And that is when he did research. He did some research to find out what is it made up of apart from cotton. What is the material at the core which acts as an absorbent. So by some research and by sending material to some labs and by his self-interest research, he found out that the material at the core of this sanitary napkin is actually a cellulose substance derived from the bark of a tree, which actually acts as an absorbent. So when he understood this, he was able to think about creating a machine, okay, finding a machine by which he could use cotton and machine, and he could actually come up with a solution. Okay, he could come up with a sanitary napkin. But that is the time he found out the machine required for this is something like this, as you see in the left. The machine is so huge, and this machine costs somewhere between 3 to 5 crores, and it has to be imported. And that is when he understood that is the reason why only MNCs are able to create sanitary napkins in our country and are selling it at multifold profit margins. Okay, so he said, this is beyond my reach. I cannot create machine. I cannot buy this machine and start making manufacturing sanitary napkins and give it to poor people. It's not possible. But that is where 4 years of his research led him to find a machine, as we can find the center right side, which costed only 5,000 rupees. Okay, which could do almost the same job with little manual labor. Okay, with little manual labor. Imagine something that costs 5 crore could be converted to something that is 5,000 rupees. Of course, not 100% automated, with little bit manual labor. That is the innovation he brought in. And his innovation was not for targeting to become a competitor in the market for the sanitary napkins that is sold. No, his intention was just to make sure that people in rural areas or urban areas where where women who cannot afford sanitary napkins could afford a sanitary napkins that he manufactured. He wanted to make sanitary napkins which would cost only ₹1. Okay, so that was his dream and desire. He spent 4 years of research. His wife was not pleased with his research because of the stigma attached to it. She filed a divorce notice for him. Okay, his mothers, his sisters, nobody was pleased. His society kind of ostracized him. But nevertheless, he pursued his research. He he found his invention. To cut the story short, and his invention, somebody even without his knowledge had put in IIT Madras's global innovation contest. Okay, that happens in IIT Madras, and that is where, with his utter surprise, his innovation was found or was judged as the best innovation in the year 2009, in the 2008 or something so. And to his surprise, his invention got the limelight, and suddenly he was in limelight. People started talking about Arunachalam Muruganathan. They started taking notice of his product. To cut the story short, you can go and watch Padman movie, or you can find his documentary. In fact, the documentary that was made on his life by an American document by somebody from abroad has won the Oscars, right? And this man's product, which makes affordable sanitary napkins possible for women, this particular machine is sold in more than 17 countries in the world today. Today, there is a Jayashree Industries, which is established by him in Coimbatore, which has more than 400 crore turnover per year. You see, a 10th fail, a mechanic help, a person who did not even have education, or half an education that you can have, could come up with an innovation that could change the lifestyle of rural women. Today, he is providing millions of employment opportunities for rural women who can actually take this machine, create sanitary napkins and distribute in the rural area, solving two problems of unemployment as well as penetration of sanitary napkins use in rural areas. That is the achievement that this guy has had. And let me tell you, this achievement was impossible without empathizing. He empathized, right? He empathized with his target audience to achieve it, right? So with the permission of Dinesh sir, can I take another couple of minutes? Because I think I'm shooting over time, right? Can I take another couple of minutes and finish it off?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, thank you. So empathize. Okay, so that is important. Now look at this other product. Okay, a great product called Nasofilter that a student from IIT Delhi had come up with, right? Now, if you look at this product called Nasofilters, okay, this was a product actually made by a student whose mom was actually suffering from asthma. You know, Delhi is the most polluted capital city in the world, one of the most polluted capital city in the world. The particulate matters in Delhi is so heavy. In fact, you would have been in Delhi. I come up from a state where pollution is very low. But when I go to Delhi, I can literally taste the pollution on my tongue. You know, that is high. But people are not comfortable with mask. You know, mask culture in Delhi did not come during COVID times. It came even before that because of the pollution, especially it peaks during November to February month, right? Now, but the mask was something that was very uncomfortable for people. People are not very much willing to wear the mask. Neither mask protected them from particulate matters of 0.2, 0.5 and all those. It was not possible. That is where a student did a research of coming up with a filter, something that can be attached to your nasal orifice. So if something that will be attached over here in your nasal orifice, which will not be even visible to naked eye, okay? And it would cost hardly less than 10 rupees and it would stick there for an entire day, right? And this particular thing could block particulate matters up to 2.5 ppm, okay? So that is the invention he came up with. And, you know, this invention is something that is an example of a product market fit. So people have pollution as a problem, but they don't want mask as a solution. They would be happy to have a solution, something like this. This requires empathizing. And the empathizing he did was with his own mother and many other people who knew pollution was a problem or were uncomfortable with mask. Our mask was not the solution at all for many of them, right? So let me give another this thing. So here you see an example of PC Mustafa. PC Mustafa is known as the founder of ID Fresh Food. It's a very popular startup in southern part of India. I don't know if it is there in northern India, but I don't know if you would have seen him. Now, what he was selling was idli vada batter. You know, idli dosa is a snack popular in southern part of India. Now it is something that is on the menu on every breakfast over here, right? So, but as increasingly people are getting urbanized and as the generations are coming up, you know, making a perfect vada that you find in the platter over here is pretty challenging. Since I am from South India, and judging the quality of vada will be on two factors. The vada should be crunchy, okay? And the vada should have a perfect spherical shape and a hole in the center, okay? If it does not have this thing, we would reject the vada to be substandard one. Okay? So, Mr. PC Mustafa could sell the vada batter, but the sales were not very high. And one reason was the urbanized people who are actually adopting his product were adopting it for easy. You know, they wanted to make things easy. But vada was something they were shunning because vada, unless the shape and unless the hole is there in the center, people will not have. But that is where he came up with this technology called vada batter squeeze machine. As you can see in the right side over here, okay? This particular sachet, okay, this particular sachet that he brought in, which if you squeeze it, it will put a perfect vada shape into your frying pan and you'll get a vada with perfect shape, as you can see in the center, out of it, okay? So once he brought in the squeeze machine, his product also started selling, skyrocketing, okay? Its sales started skyrocketing. You know, He had the same vada batter, but the only thing was how he delivered to the people. Okay, this required empathizing. He knew his product is gonna be adopted, but people were not finding it convenient. So how to make it convenient? He came up with this squeeze. Okay, this thing that you can squeeze and put a vada batter, right? Simple innovations like this can actually drive your enterprise. Okay, so that is what I am talking about, innovation-driven enterprises. I think many of you would have heard about Wow Momo. Okay, Mr. Sagar Darian and Vinod Homgai, two students in the final year of their studies, started this outlet called Wow Momo in Kolkata, right? When they were in the final year with just an investment of 30,000 rupees. They did not even have money to invest on printing a pamphlet. That's how marginalized they were. But nevertheless, they started Wow Momo on a 6x6 square foot kiosk. They started selling Wow Momo from that kiosk in the year 2009. Every single day, whatever sales they had, they saved every single penny to start another outlet. The only thing they made different about their Wow Momo was a personalized connection that they gave. For example, if they sold Wow Momo in Delhi, they made sure that they sold tandoori momos. In the mango season, they sold mango momos. They sold chocolate momos for people who love dessert. In Bangalore, they sold it as biryani momos, right? They sold as momo burgers. In Kolkata, in West Bengal, they sold it as momo rolls. So all that they did was they actually combined this momo recipe with the local cuisine or local need, and they actually came up with a new dishes or they put in design thinking practice, empathizing with the needs of a demography or a geographical location. And that made this Wow Momo outlet pretty popular, not only in Kolkata, but throughout India. Let me tell you, in 2009, started with one single outlet in a mall. Within 6 months, they were having 2 outlets. They saved money from these 2 outlets and started 3 other outlets in 1 year. But today, at the end of 11 years, there are more than 300 outlets of Wow Momo in India. And this company, which is highly funded from investors in India and abroad, today this company is worth more than 860 crores, close to 1,000 crore turnover company. Okay, so that is the power of empathizing with your customer and giving them a product or service they want, right? So I don't know if I have enough time, but quickly I'll go through this. I believe all of you know Dr. Verghese Kurian, right? The father of white revolution, or the person who found Amul in our country, right? Now, the reason he found Amul was in the midst of a milk farmers crisis. And the milk farmers crisis happened back in 1945 to 1950, when India was a milk impoverished nation, right? The reason was milk delivery system was very unorganized. People were exploited by middlemen. This milk farmers are exploited by middlemen, and they actually were selling the milks to multinational companies like Polson, who were actually dumping their excess milk products into India, further choking the milk farmers in India, right? And it lacked any technical intervention. That is where Verghese Kurian was roped in by the request of one of the local panchayat leader. Verghese Kurian was minding his own business in Khera district in Gujarat. Nevertheless, they requested him, can you find a solution for it? That is where he started empathizing with the farmers in Khera district in Gujarat, and understood that India is a milk impoverished nation and it is being exploited by the foreign nation. How to solve this problem? That is where he came up with a simple solution, which actually changed the state of our country with respect to milk production, right? He made sure that rather than each farmers going to different places and selling the milk individually, why not he make a milk procurement system, a centralized milk procurement system at a single place in the village. And he also made sure that there is some technology intervention by which he judges the fat quantity in the milk and reward the farmers on daily basis, right? And he also made sure that paid the farmers on daily basis based on the quality of the milk they deliver, right? So he brought in some technology. He created a society, and the society was managed by the farmers. Milk was delivered by the farmers. So everything in this society was done by the farmers. He was just overseeing it. Nevertheless, this took shape into Milk Cooperative Society, which was later adopted by the neighboring districts. So one of the first neighboring districts to adopt this was Anand, where it got its name, Anand Milk Union Limited, Amul, and it was established in 1950. Okay, so give you a brief overview what this intervention did. In 1950, only 2 village cooperatives were part of this milk union. Now in the 2018, I have only statistics till then. More than 1,44,500 cooperatives are part of Amul, right? Only a few hundred farmers were benefited, but now more than 15 million farmers are benefited. Only 247 liters were distributed that time, but today more than 122 million metric tons of milk. Milk. India was known as a milk deficient nation or milk impoverished nation. Today, India is the world leader in milk and milk-based product, right? By far, India is the largest producer of milk and milk-based product. Now, this was possible all because of this one person called Dr. Verghese Kurian, right? Who found out that you can innovate to find a product or a service to fit, right? So first step in any product market fit should be empathize. Empathize with your customer. Okay, to summarize, it should be to empathize. You need to empathize with your customer, understand the problem from their point of view. Second step, which you should all adopt, is effective resource management, right? How effective? As in the case of Verghese Kurian, how did he make a cooperative society? Asked the milk farmers to come to a central place, dump all their milk, and appointed some milk farmers to take the milk to the market and sell it. And that is what is called as effective resource management, right? We need to also bring some technological intervention to the problems that we are solving, okay? Because if, for example, how Verghese Kurian brought a system by which you check the quality of the milk, right? That is what is technology intervention. So all the problems that we see is businesses lying around. Let me tell you, the greatest opportunity you can find in your life is the problem that you find nearby you, right? So technology intervention is required for that. How did he mobilize the entire community to come up with this solution, and how did he evolve over time? Amul was selling only milk, but today it sells also milk-based product because it has higher profit margins. It sells skim milk, it sells milk powder, and it sells so many other paneer, so many other milk-based products. It has evolved over time. So let me tell you, this is the key to an innovation to get a product market fit. Product innovation can happen only when you empathize with your customer in the right way, right? Process innovation can happen only when you put in these two steps in place: effective resource management and technology intervention. And finally, your business model is something that should evolve over time and can only happen when you mobilize, meet the people, change it with the times and the trends of the people. And when you get these three done, you should not have any doubt that your product will not fit the market, right? Your product will be the right fit for the market only if you bring product innovation, process innovation, and business model innovation. Any one of these three missing, you may end up in a failure, right? So that is what I want to summarize. In short, find the perfect sweet spot between the user needs, the tech possibilities, and the business goals that you have. Okay, and that is what will help you to get the right product market fit, right? Yeah, okay. So that's what I wanted to share. Especially these two steps, don't forget effective resource management and technology intervention, because it's a key to solve most of the problems in our country. And let me tell you, any problem that you take up to solve is a business opportunity. Don't look at it as an invention. Convert your invention into an innovation with the help of commercialization, right? And that is the key for you to leave your indelible mark in this country or in this world, right? So thank you. Thank you so much for such a patient listening. I think I have overshot the time that was given to me. I'm very sorry about it. Yeah. Dinesh sir, it's up to your, yeah.
Thank you, Vishal Nair, sir, for
Thank you,
sharing
Anna.
such a valuable case studies to our students.
Thank you,
And they are
thank you.
very interesting. Now I request Engineer Lavneesh Talwar, HOD Electrical Department, to please give a formal vote of thanks to our guest.
Yeah, thank you so much, Anamika. Anamika, it is audible?
Yes, sir, it is very much audible.
Okay, thank you. So it is a great privilege for me to formally the vote of thanks to our resource person for the day, and Dr. Vishal. Dr. Vishal, all the students get best benefited from your talk. It was really a very grateful talk from your side, and you give such a case studies that all the students as well as the participant as well as the faculty member, those who are present there, he got just an idea that how these failures get it in London. So I, on the behalf of management, Yogananda College of Engineering and Technology, wholeheartedly thank you so much, sir. You deliver such a beautiful talk on this webinar.
Thank
I
you,
would
sir.
also like to thanks the president of IISc Cell YCT, Engineer Dinesh Gupta, sir. He is also the head of the Department of Computer Science and Engineering Department. He has done a lot of work in, especially in the field of IIC activities, and under his supervision, are flourished very well. So thank you so much, sir, to be part of
Thank
this
you.
program. And from last more than 1 hour, he's with us. So thank you so much, Dinesh sir, for arranging such a beautiful talk and inviting such a beautiful person on this day. I would also like to thank the faculty members of Electrical Engineering Department who will join this webinar. I would also like to thank the entire students fraternity of your electrical department that they had joined this webinar. Lastly, but not least, I would also like to thank our technical team who support us. Without that support, this webinar cannot be possible. So I especially thanks to Engineer Robin as well as Engineer Derek sir. So they are providing such a beautiful platform. So with this we can complete this webinar. So this is all about from my side. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Vishal ji. You have provided us such a beautiful topic and explained beautifully. Thank you very
so
much, sir.
sir. Thank you so much.
Your way of presenting was very